Why is it that the men who text first, plan every date, check in to make sure she got home safe, the ones who genuinely cared you, always seem to be the ones who get ghosted? You followed the rules. You were patient, respectful, thoughtful. You gave her space, then attention, then more space. You didn't play games. You opened up, you were vulnerable, and you made her feel seen. And in return, she slowly disappeared. Her replies got shorter. Her enthusiasm faded. Her presence turned to absence. And now you're sitting there wondering what the hell went wrong. You did everything right, so why did she pull away? Here's the bitter truth no one teaches you. What's easily gained is rarely valued. And unfortunately, when your love is served on a silver platter before it's even requested, it often gets sent back. Not because she's cruel, not because you weren't good enough, but because what you offered was unconditional before it was earned. And the human mind instinctively resists that kind of imbalance. But this isn't about blaming her. This isn't about bitterness. This is about reclaiming your edge, the part of you that forgot his value, the part that thinks love is something you win by effort, when in truth, love, real love, only flows toward presence, power, and clarity. And that's exactly what we're going to rebuild, starting now. The first trap, chasing love over self. The moment a man begins to chase love, he forgets who he is. Not because love is weak, but because chasing it is. You weren't meant to pursue it like a starving man begs for bread. You were meant to become it, to live so deeply in your purpose, your clarity, your rhythm, that love finds you. But no one taught you this. Instead, you were trained like a dog. Be nice, be available, be safe. They told you that effort would equal affection, that consistency would guarantee connection, that if you just gave enough attention, time, vulnerability, you'd eventually earn her love. And so you showed up, again and again, even when it wasn't reciprocated. Even when her text came late, her energy fell off, her attention drifted. You convinced yourself that love required patience, that being the good guy meant enduring confusion, tolerating ambiguity, and proving your worth through action. But the truth? You weren't showing strength. You were revealing lack, because the man who needs to be chosen will always orbit the one who seems out of reach, and that orbit is fatal. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write about dating. He wrote about power, about kings and empires and survival. But his words echo through the modern struggle of every man who places a woman at the center of his world. He said, "It is far safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But here, fear doesn't mean aggression. It doesn't mean intimidation. It means presence, that kind of inner stillness that says, "I'm enough, with or without you." And when that presence is gone, when your identity depends on her affection, when you seek validation instead of standing in direction, you become forgettable. Women are not drawn to men who orbit them. They're drawn to gravity, to self-respect, to restraint, to the silent confidence of a man who doesn't beg to be needed, but still chooses to show up fully because it aligns with who he is. This is the first trap, mistaking effort for magnetism, mistaking consistency for power, thinking if you just give more, she'll feel more. But in truth, every step you take toward her that costs you your center pushes her further away. This isn't about withholding love. It's about anchoring your value. Because when you stop chasing, everything, including her, starts to shift. The illusion that kindness equals value. Kindness is powerful, but only when it flows from strength, not scarcity. You've been told your whole life to be kind, be respectful, be considerate, and you listen. You brought flowers, opened doors, sent good morning texts. You showed up with heart. You offered loyalty. You went out of your way to make her feel special. But somehow it didn't have the effect you expected. Instead of drawing her closer, she faded. And deep down, it confused you. It even hurt, because everything you gave came from a genuine place. But here's what no one told you. Kindness, when given too soon or too much, doesn't always land as value. Sometimes it lands as hunger, and hunger repels more than it attracts. Machiavelli once wrote, Men judge more by the eye than by the touch, for everyone can see you, but few come in close to truly understand. In other words, people react to what you seem to be, not what you truly are. So when you seem overly available, overly eager, overly giving, what they perceive is not generosity, it's need, it's urgency, it's desperation in disguise. Not because you're weak, but because you've placed your desire above your dignity. And in a world where attention is currency, where she gets DMs, likes, emojis, and fire emojis from strangers all day, the man who overgives becomes background noise. Because to her, abundance isn't rare. Scarcity is, stillness is, restraint is. The man who doesn't rush, the man who waits before he speaks, the man who doesn't flood her inbox because he's busy building something meaningful, that man becomes magnetic, not because he's withholding, but because he's whole. Let's put it in simple terms. The man who constantly texts, rearranges his schedule, and always says yes isn't seen as kind. He's seen as empty. He's not creating connection. He's erasing mystery. And mystery is the fuel of attraction. Because the mind craves what it can't predict. The heart longs for what feels earned. So when you give her too much access too soon, she doesn't feel lucky. She feels bored. Not because she's shallow, but because there was no journey to earn your presence. And when there's no journey, there's no value. And without value, desire dies quietly. This is the illusion that kindness equals value. But in reality, value comes from boundaries, from being selective, from making sure your time, your energy, your presence aren't handed out like coupons to anyone who smiles. So yes, be kind, but let your kindness be rooted in standards, not starvation. Because true value doesn't chase. It commands, it holds still. And in that stillness, it draws everything toward it. Your mission is your masculine edge. If you strip away the noise, the games, the tactics, one truth remains. A man without a mission is a man without gravity. And gravity is what draws everything, respect, love, loyalty, toward him. When you don't have a direction, you wander. And when you wander, you chase. You chase women, validation, attention, anything that might give you a temporary sense of purpose. But the moment you do that, you flip the polarity. You become the one orbiting. And when you orbit her, when you abandon your own center to win hers, she stops feeling pulled toward you because she no longer sees a world she wants to enter. All she sees is a man who left his throne just to sit at her feet. That's not love. That's submission. Machiavelli said, "A prince must always rule his domain. If he does not, someone else will." For modern men, that domain is your direction, your growth, your path, the structure you wake up and move within each day. When that gets sacrificed in the name of affection, you don't just lose power, you lose identity. And that loss isn't romantic, it's repelling. Because no woman, no matter how much she says she wants attention, is attracted to a man who makes her his entire focus. She wants to feel chosen, yes, but she wants to choose into something, into a man who's going somewhere, who has rhythm, discipline, vision, not the man who texts back in seconds, cancels his plans, and lives for her next reply. She wants to feel your attention, but only when it's anchored in purpose, not need. Think about it. When you're on your mission, everything shifts. You move differently. You speak with a clarity. You're not rattled by her silence. You're not derailed by her moods. You're not confused by the unknown. Because your life doesn't orbit hers, it continues with or without her. That's when she notices you, not when you chase, but when you build. Because when a man is in his element, when he's locked into something higher than validation, something spiritual, physical, and creative, that's when he becomes irresistible. Not because he's unavailable, but because he's undistracted. Your mission is not a side note to your dating life. It's the headline. It's the foundation she stands on when she chooses to walk beside you. And if you don't have one, or worse, if you abandon it for her, you will become invisible. She might say she loves your heart, your kindness, your consistency, but she won't feel pulled by you because there's no pull without polarity. Your edge comes from movement, direction, that quiet, relentless sense of becoming. So ask yourself, what would it look like to fall so deeply into your own purpose that you no longer crave hers? Because when your life becomes full, your attention becomes valuable. And when your attention is valuable, she starts to chase you. The power of mystery. There's something about mystery that no logic can compete with. It lingers. It haunts. It draws you in without even trying. And when it comes to attraction, it's not a luxury. It's essential. You can be kind, funny, intelligent, even successful. But if you're not mysterious, you are not unforgettable. Because the mind doesn't crave what it understands completely. It craves what it can't explain. And that's the secret most men miss. They think honesty means full transparency. That being real means unloading their whole life story within a few days of meeting her, their past, their traumas, their intentions, their fears, all laid bare like an open book. But here's the problem. When she knows every page before the story even begins, there's no reason to keep reading. Machiavelli warned, a man who reveals all his intentions becomes predictable, and the predictable man is easy to defeat. Now apply that to relationships. You're not going to war, but you are navigating a psychological battlefield. And predictability isn't safety, it's boredom. When you rush to fill silence, when you overshare your pain in the first week, when you express every emotion the moment it arises, you rob the connection of depth. You're not bonding, you're bleeding. And what bleeds easily is often treated carelessly. Mystery isn't about playing games, it's about protecting the sacred. Because when you reveal everything without discernment, what you're really saying is, I hope this will make you like me. But when you hold back with purpose, when you allow space for her to ask, to wonder, to discover, that's when desire grows. You become the man she thinks about at night, not because you tried to impress her, but because she doesn't fully understand you yet. And that not knowing keeps her invested. Now, this doesn't mean being emotionally cold. This isn't about building walls. It's about moving with depth. You can be warm and open while still being selective. You can be kind without being exposed. Imagine two men. One shares every scar, every wound, every dream in the first few dates. He calls it vulnerability. He thinks it builds trust. But really, he's just an unloading. He's handing over the final chapter without letting her earn the beginning. The second man listens more than he speaks. He shares in layers. He's present, but he's not pressed. He lets silence breathe. He lets questions remain unanswered, not to frustrate, but to build tension. And guess which one she texts later? Guess which one lingers in her mind? In a world that overshares, mystery becomes a signal of strength. It tells her, this man knows himself. This man doesn't need to be understood to feel secure. This man chooses what to reveal and when, and because of that, what he shares feels like a gift. So ask yourself, do you speak to connect or to convince? Do you share from fullness or from fear? Because when you begin to speak less and reveal slowly, something magical happens. She leans in. And the moment she starts chasing your truth, instead of being handed it for free, you've already won. Stillness over reactivity. There's a certain kind of man who doesn't flinch. You know it when you see it. The man who doesn't chase clarity when things get tense, who doesn't raise his voice, who doesn't send 5 texts in a row trying to fix the silence. While others panic, he pauses. While others grasp, he grounds. And that stillness, that inner calm, it radiates power far louder than any display of dominance ever could. Because what most men don't understand is this: emotional reactivity is emotional dependence. When she pulls away and you immediately reach out, she feels it. When she sends a cold text and you respond with a wall of over-explaining, she senses it. When she tests you, subtly or directly, and you panic into people-pleasing mode, she knows exactly what you just told her. You control me. Machiavelli said, the man who cannot govern his passions will soon be governed by others. And in dating, this plays out every single day. She wants to know what you're made of. Not to manipulate you, but to measure you. She wants to feel that you are centered enough to stay still when things don't go your way. That you don't flinch the moment tension arises. that you don't break the moment she steps back. Most men crumble. They spiral at the first sign of distance. They beg. They plead. They apologize for things that weren't even wrong. They drown her inbox trying to fix the ambiguity. But in doing so, they kill their own attraction. Because here's what women really want to feel. Can he hold the tension? Can you stay present when she needs space? Can you keep your rhythm when she pulls back? Can you respond when necessary and walk away when disrespected? If not, you're not grounded, you're dependent. And dependence is never attractive. What's attractive is stillness, not cold silence, not manipulation. Just that deep masculine steadiness that says, I felt that, I noticed it, but it doesn't move me. I'll respond, but I won't react. I'll speak, but I won't beg. I'll adjust, but I will never abandon myself. Stillness doesn't mean you lack emotion. It means you've mastered it. It means you can hold your own chaos without throwing it on someone else. It means you can feel jealousy, anger, disappointment, and still move with grace, not desperation. Because the man who can stay centered when the world pulls him in every direction, he becomes a lighthouse, a magnetic presence, a source of safety, not the soft kind, but the structured kind. And in that calm, women feel something ancient, something rare. They feel protected, not by force, but by presence. So the next time she pulls away, don't chase. When the silence stretches, don't speak just to fill it. Let her feel your stillness. Let her feel your gravity. Because the man who doesn't flinch, he doesn't just keep her attention. He earns her respect. Respect before love. You can be charming, you can be romantic. You can be the most attentive man she's ever met. But if she doesn't respect you, she will never stay. And that's the uncomfortable truth most men are afraid to face. They want to be liked. They want to be loved. But in that pursuit, they tolerate things that slowly destroy them. They forgive flakiness without consequence. They laugh off disrespect like it's no big deal. They accept the hot and cold, the sarcastic digs, the passive-aggressive comments, all in the name of being understanding. But every time you let disrespect slide, you don't look patient. You look weak. Machiavelli said, "A ruler who fears upsetting others will soon lose his throne." And as a man, your throne is your self-respect, your boundaries, your standards. The moment you trade those away for comfort, you're not protecting love. You're signing its death certificate, because love without respect is nothing but emotional charity. She may enjoy your presence, she may use your attention, but deep down she will not feel pulled to stay. Disrespect doesn't always show up as cheating or dramatic betrayal. It often begins subtly. She cancels plans last minute, and you say nothing. She mocks something meaningful to you, and you laugh along. She flirts with other men right in front of you, and you convince yourself not to make a scene. But inside, something dies. Your standard, your clarity, your edge. And once that edge dulls, attraction doesn't crash. It erodes. Not all at once, bit by bit. Until one day she doesn't even know why she feels distant. She just knows you've become forgettable. Respect isn't about dominance. It's not about being loud. It's about being clear. It's saying, "This matters to me." It's holding your ground without needing to raise your voice. It's calmly walking away from anything that violates your values, not to teach her a lesson, but to protect your soul. And here's what so many men miss. A woman tests you not because she's cruel, but because she's searching for your spine. She wants to feel something solid, something she can lean into, something that tells her, this man won't disappear into my approval. Every time you smile through disrespect, you prove her suspicion. You can be pushed, you can be molded, you can be broken. But when you hold the line, not with anger, but with presence, that's when she feels safe. That's when she trusts you. That's when she respects you, and in turn begins to love you for real. So stop trying to be liked. Draw your lines, clearly, calmly, and without apology. And if someone crosses them, you don't yell, you don't chase, you exit. Because the man who can walk away quietly, walks with power, sovereignty over sacrifice. There's a man you might know. Maybe you see him in the mirror. He met a woman who made his heart race, who brought light into his life. So he did what he thought a good man should do. He adjusted, he compromised, he gave a little more of himself each time she asked. Time, energy, focus. He started skipping the gym. He delayed that project. He stopped hanging out with his brothers. He smiled when she teased his values. And eventually he lost himself trying to keep her. This man didn't surrender with a dramatic collapse. He faded quietly. He told himself it was love, that real men make sacrifices, that a relationship requires bending. But here's the bitter truth. If you sacrifice your sovereignty to keep a woman, you will lose her anyway. Not because she's cruel, but because something inside her cannot stay drawn to a man who abandons himself. No matter what she says, no matter how sweet her words, she doesn't want to be the center of your universe. She wants to be part of a world that already exists. A world with laws, with structure, with motion, with discipline, a world she must rise to enter, not one that crumbles to accommodate her. Machiavelli said, "A prince must always rule his domain. If he does not, someone else will." And in modern relationships, that domain is your purpose, your daily rhythm, your integrity, your identity as a man, not a boyfriend, not a sidekick, a man. When you orbit her, she loses respect, not because you're too loving, but because your fire dies. And the man she was first drawn to, the man with purpose in his eyes, intention in his stride, he begins to vanish. She may not know why her desire has faded, but on some level she senses it. The kingdom is now hers, and that's not what she wanted. She wanted to walk beside your power, not become the reason it withered. So here's the paradox. A woman doesn't fall in love because you need her. She falls when she realizes you don't. Not out of coldness, but out of wholeness. She sees a man who doesn't need to abandon himself to feel love. She sees a man who loves with intention, not dependency. A man who chooses her, not because he's lost, but because he's already full. That's what makes a woman stay. That's what makes her rise to meet your level instead of dragging you down to hers. So how do you preserve your sovereignty? You build. Even when she wants comfort, you stay focused. Even when she wants all of your time, you maintain rhythm. Even when she wants chaos, you don't do this out of ego. You do it because your fire is sacred. And any woman who loves you will never try to dim it. She will walk beside it. She will protect it. And if she can't, you don't rage, you don't beg. You let her go with grace because you know your path. You know who you are. And you finally realize you were never meant to be ruled by love. You were meant to lead it. Stop chasing, start commanding. This is the shift no one teaches you, the one that separates boys from men. You've spent years trying to be chosen, trying to say the right thing, show the right side of yourself, be lovable enough. But what if the secret to being loved was never in being more? What if it was in being less available, more grounded, and unshakably clear? See, the man who chases is always negotiating. His worth depends on her response. He bends, he adjusts, he explains, he performs. But the man who commands, he doesn't perform. He simply becomes impossible to ignore. Not because he's loud, not because he's perfect, but because he's whole. He's centered in purpose. He's driven by mission. He's filled from within. Machiavellian masculinity is not about manipulation. It's not about deception. It's about clarity, presence, restraint. It's understanding that attraction isn't something you force. It's something you allow. It's not created by convincing her, but by commanding yourself. You no longer text to prove. You no longer speak to fill silence. You no longer rush to fix what's uncomfortable. Because the man you're becoming knows that stillness is a weapon, and emotional control is the foundation of respect. He knows that love is not won through effort, it is drawn through essence. And when a woman meets this kind of man, something inside her changes. She leans in. She shows up with more energy, not because he played games, but because she feels the gravity of who he is. So what does this mean for you right now? It means no more begging, no more shrinking, no more giving away your crown for crumbs of attention. It means becoming the man whose time must be earned, whose love is not a performance, but a presence. A presence that says, I don't need you to choose me because I already chose myself. And if she rises to meet you, good. If she walks away, good. Because now you finally understand your worth isn't proven by who stays. It's proven by what you refuse to lose to keep them. That's sovereignty. That's power. That's the fire you don't put out for anyone. So from this moment forward, stop chasing, start building, start anchoring, start commanding love, not through force, but through unshakable alignment with who you are. Because the man who walks alone in truth never walks empty. He walks with strength. He walks with peace. And eventually he walks beside the woman who wouldn't dare ask him to abandon it.